Welcome to Did She Really Say That? The podcast for women who are done following the traditional business rules that don't serve us. I am your host, Katrina Van Oudhoosden, and in every episode, we break down what it really takes to scale your business as a woman. No burnout, no BS, no apologies. So if you're ready to discover how your natural female intelligence can become your biggest and most authentic advantage, grab your free guide at createherplanner.com/free. Now let's dive into today's episode. So Anita's going to bring a part of this conversation that I love for all of our creators to listen to and hear in our audience. So she's a multidisciplinary artist and a somatic coach devoted to helping women open up their desires, their creativity, and their voice. And I love this because you know that all of us that I talk about, ladies, all the time, that we need to embrace our desires and our sensuality. And these are not dirty words. These are actually women and feminine words that I want us to embrace, right? She is the founder of Dirty Sexy Healing, which I absolutely love. She teaches erotic writing to help women open up their desire. She teaches erotic writing as a living, breathing art form, one that awakens, turns on, and deepens our self-trust and brings women back into the relationships with their hearts and their body. I love that. Her path began with dance, painting, and songwriting, modalities that helped her heal long before she had the language for it. Over the span of 2 decades, she has immersed herself in a spiritual psychology, somatics, desire studies. Wait, there's desire study? Just
Absolutely.
say yes. Okay. Erotic practices and the art of telling the... Ooh, I hope all my listeners are ready for this fun conversation we're having. Her spaces are known for feeling deeply safe, playful, connected, and liberating. Yes. This is what we all desire as women, right? So Anita's work sits at the intersection of creativity and erotic energy, guiding women to know themselves more deeply while opening up the full range of expression. So Anita, thank you so much for jumping onto this podcast. Did she really say that? I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I'll just say just the name of your pod. I'm like, that could be the name of my business. Did she really say? Yeah. So
Because it is that conversation, especially when we're diving into this conversation around erotic, because I think there's a lot of understanding. I think there's a lot of myth understanding, so myths out there around what it is. And I know that when we first met, our conversation around erotic and how it shows up in our life, and just giving women back this word and around just the experience, I think is so beautiful. And then you teach us how to write erotic. So let's go step back a bit. And I want to know, Anita, how did you get into this? Is this your background? I mean, we talked about the dance and everything else, but is this always been your business?
no, in fact, I've been building this business for the last 3 years, but
Okay.
about 8 years ago, I took my first erotic writing class and I had this natural ability for it. And I just started noticing this ease in saying all of these things that, seem to turn people on or excite them or make them laugh. And around that same time, I found a women's group, and the subject of the women's group was sex. And so the women would come each week and we would talk about the sex we were having, the sex we were wanting to have, desires, and no one was left out wherever they were in their journey. But I found that talking about sex in particular has been incredibly freeing. And I noticed there's certain friends that there's a real open door with conversations around sex, but growing up, I didn't talk about sex very much with my friends. It's like something that's very silenced, and so to open that up, that changed my life. And so I've been holding this desire for many years to start a business related to this, because I know that there's a lot of freedom that's available when women get the chance to connect and be in community with each other and express about their desires or the things they've experienced.
So this leads to this question around this. So why, as women, do we struggle so much with talking about?
This is very layered, right? I think there's a few things happening. One is that I think that we live in a shame-based culture around sex, that we are taught not to talk about things that are, taboo or quote unquote dirty, right? Or, we're conditioned to be pleasing, so there's this big umbrella of shame-based culture. And shame is one of the most challenging experiences to have as a person. And so I think people avoid feeling shame, and so they'll skirt around to not actually feel that feeling, which makes sense to me. It's really a hard one to feel. But then again, it's like because we're conditioned to be pleasing, we're not taught to explore what we want and to have expectations and desires and to have a voice around that. And so many, and I know that this is part of my personal journey is just I can remember being in, sexual situations with people and being asked, what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know.
No.
Right? Like there is a lot around just having desires that is scary because
Yes.
if even being asked to like, what do you want for dinner? And I'll just find myself sometimes I go completely blank and I know
Yeah.
that that's my conditioning. It's like, oh, well, what do you want for dinner? When really, when I'm by myself, I know exactly what
So
in any
true.
given moment I'm like, I want the sushi and I'm very clear on that. But when another person comes in, it's like my conditioning comes in.
Defaulting.
Yeah, it tamps it down. So those are a couple things I think.
No,
And
I think
yeah.
you're right, honestly, because like I can even remember, even in my journey, and I'm still dating right now also, so that's the audience all knows that. But there's always that sense of like, what do you like? What turns you on? What turns you off? What are those kinds of things? And it has been in the past like a block because I'm like, oh, I don't want to say what because you don't want to ruin the relationship, especially when you're starting to date. So you don't want to necessarily give away everything. But I definitely see where that also hinders the intimacy of the relationship. It also creates a block in the communication. When I'm unable to communicate, he's unable to understand either. So it's like it is. It's really an awkward conversation, but it shouldn't be. But that's what it
Hmm.
feels like.
Yeah, and I think also there's, a misconception around and who they are and more sexual exploration is men really want to know.
They do.
And if I can be direct about what I want and they can provide that, wow, I'm letting them win with like I'm giving them the keys to the kingdom. It's like this is really the thing that I want, and that's a big deal. It takes a lot of courage to say what I want, but it's like men want to provide that thing for us. And if they know
Yes.
what it is, it's so much easier to.
And yet, as women, we struggle with naming what our desires are and what we want. So I guess this also goes back to the question. So, like, you're in this business of writing erotic. I mean, what kind of challenges could you possibly face in this business? I mean, it's got to be like everything. So, like, what have you bumped up against in designing this business that you're creating for women? Because I feel like there's a resistance, but also a lot of acceptance in what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing there's a couple challenges that I face. One is that women don't tend to make time for themselves. Noticing that.
What? My women in this audience, you guys don't make time for yourself? You know how much I'm against that.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, and also I've noticed this thing. There's a trickiness with desire. Like I'll
Mm.
have women come into my space and they really want to take a class, but then it's like, well, I can only take a class on the weekend. And so then I create the class on the weekend and I reach back out and it's like, oh, well, I can't commit to that. There's a way where women, I think there's a path to women actually having their own no as well. Be like, sorry, I don't want to take the class. Like that would be great for me as a business owner trying to enroll people or invite people into class. If it was just a yes or a no, I could move on to
Yeah.
people that are a yes. That's one thing. Another thing, well, I'll just to be honest, I inside the class, there's always an arc that happens. And I notice when people first come in, there's so much fear and a lot of fear in reading erotica for the first time. And I've had women come in like just cry in that first session and take the leap, and once a woman crosses over into reading her first piece, it's like something opens up, and the next time I ask for volunteers, it's like everyone's like, I'll read, and there's like a liberation right away out of the first class. There's something that happens that gives people permission, but it's that fear that is such a hurdle. Yeah.
So let's talk about that because there was something interesting you said when we first met. And for the audience that's listening, I definitely recommend connecting with Anita around this one because we were talking how powerful it is to read out loud erotic writing
Oh yeah.
and what it does for the senses as women to hear somebody reading it to us. So there's a lot of times where, we read it to ourselves and we're like, hee, like, this would be really great. But to actually voice does take a level of vulnerability for us women to then be able to say it. So I love, so talk to me a little bit about like why it's so important to read and have the women read out loud these erotic, sections during your class. during your
Yeah.
workshops?
Yeah. And I'll just name that right now, I tend to do small groups so that it becomes like an intimate, connected
Right.
experience. And so there's safety that's created through the connect. But what I find is that when a woman can speak, really charge content, and it's an embodiment practice. It's like, it's things that people have never said before. And all of a sudden they're saying it and they're getting more free. And then they're writing something that's even more sensational or why. And it's like a practice space for speaking these sexually charged things. And then what I notice is that it crosses over. And when women are in sexually charged, they have more capability to be able to speak something because they
Mm.
practiced it. And that's such a full thing. And I was wondering just now, I thought of a woman who took my class and she had never asked for what she wanted in sex before. And she got a lot of courage from practicing, and she went to her partner and asked for exactly the thing she wanted and got to experience it, and she came back to tell us about it. But it was like that's an example of how it crosses over into real life.
Well, and it's so interesting because so let's talk about some of these sexually words out there. So this is, did she really say that? And so, lady, if you're listening with your children in the background, or there's anything that comes up during this conversation and some of the words that we say, I will disclaim this and say, if there is something that we say or a word that we use that makes you uncomfortable, I invite you to be in that uncomfortableness and find out if what that sounds like to yourself to say the word out loud that we're about to say. Because I find that sometimes that is where we get stuck. And I know some of the language we're about to use, Anita, I even struggled with it the first times I heard some of these words, like the word pussy. That was a harsh word. I actually had a business muse ask me that when I was talking about design my business. She goes, well, have you consulted your pussy? And I was so offended, yet intrigued at the same time. And I couldn't even say the word back to her. Thought she was losing her mind. Like, how does a pussy relate to being a business owner? Right? As a female, I thought they were so unconnected. Lies, I tell you. Complete bullshit lies I was telling myself because the pussy word was such a release word for me in designing and building my next step of my business. Like you talk about verbally able to say things. So like what are some sexually other charged words that oftentimes we struggle to say out loud as women?
Anything. It's like ass, and then you add some context. It's like spread my ass. Yeah.
Touch my boobs, caress my
Yeah.
breasts, grab them, bite my tits, things like that. Like saying stuff out. Like I know we're giggling because we can't help ourselves. Like we're saying this in a yeah,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Bite
Because
my
these,
tits.
yeah, bite my tits, right? Harder, right? And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
asking for that, in the moment, if you've never practiced saying that, when it does first come out, you're just so like, I don't think I can say that. And that's literally the thought process I think a lot of us have is, I don't think I can say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then it's like to give yourself the opportunity to try is pretty profound. And also,
Mm.
I love how you and I naturally started laughing. And that's what I find like when we come into an erotic writing space, there's so because you just can't help it. It's like this is wild stuff that we're talking about. How do you describe that like awkward sexual encounter that you had or that really hot thing but you're describing the details. It's so fun and
Hmm.
enlivening. And I think sex is hilarious, personally. There's so many things to point to that are so funny about it.
That leads to the question too, is like, is it appropriate or inappropriate to laugh in the bedroom? Like I've actually had that question come up. I'm like, there should like it's not a serious business. It's awkward body movements coming together. Seriously, like, come on, let's have some fun with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for laughter. I've had some really funny, explosive laughter at times. Just can't help it. And it happens when it happens. I think
Mm,
laughter is like an involuntary
yeah.
experience. Some like in the same way turn on is an involuntary. It's like the cheeks flush, you get warm and you're like, wow, I'm sweating all of a sudden. It's like these
Like,
involuntary things are part of turn on and
yeah.
excitement. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's just interesting because, when we talk about erotic and what you're doing for writing, and you're also tying this into the world of like being a woman in business and getting into the world of entrepreneurship, it's like, and we touched upon it briefly, it is saying it out loud. So, but what have you noticed of how women that have come through your class and then how they're bringing this into business space of even entrepreneurship or growing their business? Like, what are you seeing as the correlation between the two?
Yeah, well, I actually just spoke with a woman who's a CEO and she took my class and she was saying, I want to tell other CEOs about this writing
Mm,
experience. You want to grow in a really unique way. It's like do something that will surprise the hell out of yourself. And so I think because it's like when I'm coming back to that. Like, we practice saying sexually charged content, but for me, it's like charged content has sensation. It's
Yeah.
like it is the thing that makes our temperature rise and our cheeks flush. And that to me is on the entrepreneurship and being a leader and standing up and saying something to the people that you're leading that might be or inspirational or challenging. So I just don't think you can go wrong if you're a woman accessing your voice. It's like this is a path that all of us need to cross, whether that's in business or in sex.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. That's why I brought you on here to did she really say that? Because this is the truth of the conversation is that if I think so many times we look at confidence and we look at being a bold leader as a but then you have to look at where we're not having our voice. And it's not having our voice out there. It's our having our voice inside those intimately charged moments in our life. If we have no voice there,
Right.
how do we expect to go out into the business world and say, well, this is my true authentic voice when we're so shut down in the world? And I think the word that came to mind is that we've been taught to be proper. We've been taught as women that it's our duty to be in the bedroom and just to accept whatever is done to us as instead of being a participant in the whole experience.
Yeah, and I've been there. That's been part of my journey is like emerging from a type of sex where it's like letting someone else lead for, being able, honestly, it's like even being able to say something like, "Can you slow down?" Like just that and feel really edgy, and yet slowing down might be the thing that would allow me to actually feel more. And that's important, to oneself. And again, it's like I actually know, I mean, my experience is that men are very responsive to what I say. But if I don't say anything, they're just on their own track. They're doing their own thing. They're going for their pleasure. But really I can kind of bring it back to me, which is full.
Yeah. And I think we always want, and as women, we watch the romance movies, we read the romance books, whatever, for those of us that are out there, and we always want the guy that'll take control of or lead the relationship kind of a thing. But to lead, we also have to be willing to, like,
Hmm.
it is both. Like, there has to be mutual dance that takes place, and that communication is so critical everywhere. I mean, it takes place not in the bedroom, but it takes place, like you said, out everywhere outside of there. So I'm just so super curious. Like, what had you start tying this into the world of business? Looks like I don't feel like it started there when you started your writing in your classes, but like, how did you kind of say, no, this is for women in business. This is for female CEOs. This is a track of individuals I really want to connect with around this erotic writing and reading element and what you're building inside of your business.
Yeah. Well, I serve like a whole range of women. So I serve moms, I serve people that aren't business owners. But then what I noticed, female entrepreneurs, it's like there's already so much power. And then if a woman can kind of take the expression of her voice to the next level, it's like there's just so much more power. And I think in our culture, women that are naturally powerful, when they've grown up, they've been told to like be quiet, slow down, like there's all this reflection of that, like you're too much. And in my class, I'm like, you're full and I want more. And so it's like the opposite. And so that's why I love working with entrepreneurs and business people because they're already on the risk taking. And so why not just take it to the next level? And honestly, my class is fun. That's what it is. I teach through play. And when you learn in a playful environment, the learn is so much easier.
Yeah.
And I have people come in that aren't writers. And I had a woman come in who's like, I'm not a writer. And in fact, I hate writing, but I don't know why I'm here. And I'm like, great, this is what you're going to do. Start here. And now she's been with me for months and she's taken my class probably 4 or 5. And it's like she's developed a voice in her writing. She came in literally saying, I haven't written in years. I don't even like it, but I just felt called to check this out. And so you don't have to be a writer even to do this. I create it in a really simple way so that anyone can get.
Yeah. In the fun environment. And I think that's where women want to go is like, can I be in a safe, like you said, it's intimate, it's small environment, it's the safe space to really deepen, explore, understand, And I think it's really interesting to meet other women of different backgrounds and share that space with them. Because that I feel is the biggest missing is that we as women don't talk to each other. There's so much wisdom that we could share and hand off to each other if we just started opening up around this conversation. So my question for you is, what's next for Dirty Sexy Healing? Like, what's your vision for your business and the invitation for women to experience the joy of erotic writing?
Yeah, so I have on the horizon in 2026, I have three main offerings. The first is a 5-week class called Embody Erotica. I think that's a brilliant place to get started. I also am launching a Substack, and so that's going to be audio erotica in your inbox landing, and I'll have a free subscription and a paid subscription for that. I'm really excited about that. In fact,
Interesting.
if you go to dirtysexyhealing.com, you'll be able to put your name and email, sign up for my free Substack, and instantly get a free piece of audio erotica. And then in addition to that, I do small grouping packages. And so I'm launching a 6-month program called Desire Sanctuary. And it's
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah. You guys, for those that weren't watching, those are just listening, like Anita just kind of sat up and said, like, by the way, I'm doing this. Like it was so perfect. Like, I love it. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so it's going to include erotic writing, group coaching, one-on-one coaching, embodiment practices, and personal discovery. And I want women to basically bring in something that they really want in their lives. And then we're going to add arousal, add erotica to create like more flow with their desires. And so that's the horizon. And eventually, I know you do retreats, and I'm super inspired by retreats. At some point, I want to do retreats as well. But I really just want to serve as many women as I can in opening up their expression and their voice and coming into connection with other.
Yeah, so as we kind of wrap up this episode around this, like let's talk erotic because I know when we were talking about erotic and erotica and what it is, like you said it's just not just sex. It could be life experiences around us. Like we were kind of having that line of conversation. So can you share a little bit about that and why we think erotic is such the dirty word?
Well, I think when you hear erotic, by the way, the word erotic is highly censored on, if it's hard to put out any ad that has that word. It's a censored word, which is wild. Yeah,
That's so bizarre.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting. I don't know. I just put this tidbit, but having a business related to sexuality, it's also like I actually get a Stripe account because they have a rule against no erotic thing. They put erotic writing in the same category as pornography, which has been a challenge for me. And so I'm finding ways around that. But
I have a
yeah.
resource for you, by the way, so
Oh,
you can
great.
work around that because I've had other people have been in that same situation. So I have another resource for you to accept payments that's not through them. So yeah, noted.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So it's so funny. I have an answer to your question, but I forgot the question
no, so the
completely.
question is around erotic and just like the different ways
Oh,
it's
yes.
been like how it actually shows up in our lives, not just in the bedroom, but where erotic really plays.
Yeah. And so when I bring women into the space and give that full permission to write erotica from a bunch of different vantage points, what I do is I really think about what are all the experiences that I've actually had in relationship, sexual encounter. And some of the things that come forward for me are like, well, I've had disappointment. I've felt reject. I've had like awkwardness. I've had, for me, for many years, longing and things being out of reach was erotic for me. Like there's eroticism in longing and wanting and just out of reach. And that can feel bittersweet. It can feel painful. So when I teach erotica, I'm really saying like, it's matters of the heart. It's like, yes, it's sexual content, sexual exploration, describing sexual things, but it's also like all of the thinking that goes along with sex or the disappointment, the just out of reach, the things that didn't work well. So it's like it's more holistic in that way, in the way that it's like, how do you express yourself as a person with your experience?
So do you have like a sample for us or something that you could read or something you might want to share with us on this podcast that you can share?
Yeah, so I chose some, and I think this is an example of something on the periphery. It's not a hardcore section, but I'll just read it. It was something that came forward today when I was choosing a piece. I found this one. Okay. When I started my sexual exploration, I learned to pay more attention to my body. I began learning the language of her sensation. I would consult her for answers and responses. My body's voice became so loud that I could no longer deny. You see, over time, my pussy developed her yes and her no. She wants what she wants, has a life of her own, desires, opinions, and preferences. I believe that the voice and the pussy are connected, that the heart and the voice and our imagination are connected. I believe the clit and the truth are connected, and the truth and the voice are connected, that words, truth, and desire are connected, and that all of these connected things are connected. So when you find your way into connection with sex and your unique expression of it, then the discovery of the things that you like and what you want and are not sure that you want, but you want to try and learn and find out, those wires of connect get crossed and they create heat and brilliance and forge power. And your female body, your heart, mind, pussy, and voice, it was built for that type of power. Thank you.
There was, even in my listening over here, and I invite the audience to just pull back and play that again. Anita, your voice is amazing. And all I could think of is that you need to be doing this as a
Yes, there'll be a podcast. Yeah.
Because the landing of that over here for me, and I invite our listeners just to, what did you hear for yourself in this conversation? And if you're feeling open, sharing, what it was, but I felt a softening in listening to you. I felt a sense of acceptance over here for being able to ask and receive, and seeing that as being a woman, the pussy, the clit, all of that is the language that is my pleasure. And being able to ask for my pleasures in life beyond just the physical body, but for everything else, the pleasure of his company, the pleasure of doing business with somebody, the pleasure of like eating a really delicious meal, the pleasure of wine, coffee, tea, so many things we take for granted, but those are the pleasures that we indulge in. And I think we forget that so much as women. I felt when I listened to you, I was like, oh yeah, I can have that again.
Yeah.
Like, so thank you for that, because it was just a beautiful moment just to listen to you and share that. And that I wanted you, the listeners, to hear that too. I want you to understand that erotic doesn't have to be an explicit description of a sexual act, but there is a beauty and grace of just being able to connect that together. And I think that's what you did beautifully, Anita. So thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow up with that notion of, you said enjoying a meal, like the pleasure. I was thinking about, I have a woman who writes erotica about food and her pleasure of food, and she's a chef, and it's like so incredible. And when I chose this piece today, it actually reminds me of our conversation, Katrina. And I just want to say, it's like, when I went to your website and saw that line, the power of your pussy plus the brilliance of your brain, I was like, that could be my tagline. And just, I'm so grateful for this conversation, because I feel like what you've created is so in alignment with what I'm up to as well. It's like a different form. Yeah.
Yeah. The creator is to understand herself, both in the body and her relationship to rhythm and time and energy, and the ability to speak and call forth what she really wants. So yeah, there is so much synergy between us, because it's just all of us women asking each other to raise up our voice. And to do that is to confront the uncomfortable and say there is a difference. And it's just as powerful. If not, it's not a better than. It's that equalization that we're asking for. It's that yin to the yang that we're calling out for in the universe, saying, I want the yin. And as women, Anita is giving you the possibility and the opportunity to sit down and say, what if I could write it? What if I could speak it? And what does that create for my world as a creator? And how does that honor my body, not just my mind? That's
Mic
what I
drop.
love. Yeah, mic drop. So for all of our listeners, all right, so Anita's got a great gift for you. So the Dirty Sexy Healing, that's going to be down in the show notes. So definitely click on those links, get connected with her, get the recordings, get into her Substack, use this as a tool. So crazy when I think about it, but it's like, as a female entrepreneur, what if you had this in your back pocket and it allowed you to really create who you are in the world and the business you're designing and the desires around that, right? So I invite you to do this. And if there's anything you heard in this conversation, you're like, oh my God, I know another woman that needs to hear this. Or, oh my goodness, my friend needs to hear it. Share this with them. Anita and I are not here in a solo environment talking to you and saying, don't invite us into your lives. We're here because we want you to share out. And the best way to raise women's voice is for us to collaborate together, share together, and support each other. So Anita, thank you so much for being here. I was going to ask you the question, has there ever been a moment where you've said or done something that's like, did she really say that? But honestly, I think this whole episode has been one, did she really say that moment? So I'm not even going to add. Is there any last words of of pleasures, desires that you want to impart on the women that are listening here today.
When you were having your mic drop moment and saying all of those beautiful words, the thing that came to mind was this reflection that I've gotten from a handful of women where they'll say, I didn't know I needed that. They'll also say, I don't know what it is, but I feel more like myself than I ever had. And the way that I see that is that we're not pushing this part of ourselves into the shadow. We're just saying, like, this is a part of me too. And then the whole person is more online and more expressed. And I think really that's the power of erotic writing as an expressive and healing art.
And I love that you're bringing it into this world. And thank you for being just the pioneer of just this conversation. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here on Did She Really Say That? So for all of our listeners, definitely take away, share, comment. We love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. If today's conversation hit home, don't just listen, take the next step. Download the free Create Her Authentically guide at createherplanner.com/free and discover how to build your business in alignment with your natural rhythm. And if you love this episode, please leave a review. It helps more women find the show. I'll see you in the next episode.